Awesome. All right. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to our career mentoring workshop hosted by Mr. Pete Agur. And yeah, it's great. He has a lot of experience in the aviation industry and in general. So we really look forward to hearing more about it. So I'll let you take over by introducing yourself and also telling us a little bit more about yourself.
Thank you, Philip. And certainly what I would be delighted to have any of you do is ask for any questions that you have or interrupt and make sure that I cover whatever is most important to you. Um, Quick summary of my background is I started out not knowing what I wanted to do. So I started out as an aerospace engineer student at the University of Colorado. Um, Halfway through that, got interrupted by going into the military, flew for the Army for several years, got back out, finished my education in the Colorado area, uh, and also flight instructed, including for United Airlines, and had a lot of fun doing that. But nobody was hiring at the time. Everybody was furloughed. There were over 380 pilots who were furloughed with United at that time. So I had a interview number, but no idea when the date would come. Uh, had resumes out and was happily enough. A friend of mine got hired by Beach Aircraft, and they asked him who else they should talk to. And so that's how I got my first real interview, and went to work for Beach and worked within the Beach organization for 6 years. They relocated me to Atlanta, where I was regional manager for the franchises from the DC area down to Houston, and thoroughly enjoyed the fact that they gave me an airplane and a fuel credit card and said, go out and make people happy. And so that was my job for 6 years, doing that sort of thing. Uh, Ended up working for three other airframe manufacturers over the next number of years, 7 years. Uh, MBB, Sikorsky, and Mitsubishi, not in that order. Um, and what was interesting is my career in each of those steps was a step up and forward, but it was a step of opportunity rather than a step of intent. And I want to be very clear about that. It was not what I was wanting to do, it was what was available to do. And so, with that in mind, each of those choices that I made were reactive. And then when I went to graduate school to learn how to be the VP of marketing for one of the airframe manufacturers, the light bulb went on, and I realized that there was a need for a business that helped aviation professionals and aircraft owners work better together, because each of them were outstanding at either the technical side of aviation or in the business side of business, but not between the two working well. And so I created a consulting practice that does that. And so started that in 1985, retired from it at the end of 2017, first of 2018, and then failed retirement a year ago when I came to work here. And have thoroughly enjoyed the opportunity to be here in Daytona, and even more so working here on campus, having a chance to work with you all. If I were to ask the classic smart question, Philip, it would be, what do I know now that I wish I'd known when I was in your shoes? And that's a very classic and I think very smart question to ask. And the answer that I have for that is that when I came out of the Army, I was simply focused on making a living. I had a wife and a little boy at the time. I knew that what I wanted to do, even though I had no college debt, I still needed to be sure and be a breadwinner. And so I was absolutely focused on what it would be that would pay the bills. And so I went where that happened. I went with the resume, and I went with the interview, and I went with the company. I was extraordinarily lucky to go to work for Beach, because it was a phenomenal place to be. 12,500 employees, and only 73 people were on the insurance list to fly the airplanes, either as demonstration pilots or experimental test pilots, and a few others. And to have a chance to work within that organization on phenomenally beautifully built airplanes. They're wonderful to own and fly. I own a Bonanza. She's just being finished up with her paint job. So she's finally going to be something that I'm comfortable with other people seeing. But I have flown to the West Coast and back in her, and she didn't skip a beat. Beach airplanes are just absolutely magnificent pieces of equipment. However, was that really who I was, and was that really what I wanted to do? And the answer is, for 13 years, I banged around in large organizations, doing very well, being promoted, being praised for what I did, and not loving it. And only after I went to work in a smaller organization did the light bulb go on that who I am requires that I be deeply involved on a small organization level. And so for me, what's best is that I have an environment that fits my personality. And so I turn to you all and say, I want you to think about who you are and the kinds of things that are important to you. And the way I describe it is, if you need a strong sense of organization, a strong sense of control over the risks that are associated with most businesses, if you enjoy being part of a large organization that is making big differences, then the Boeings, the Gulfstreams, the United Airlines, the Delta Airlines, the Southwest Airlines of the world are wonderful places to be. If, on the other hand, the idea of that kind of structure causes you to feel uncomfortable, then if you have a high need for a role that requires responsibility and authority and decision making and deep involvement, then a smaller organization is likely to be more consistent with what you really love to do. And whether that's on a service side or on a product side is an additional playground. If you are really, really good with people, and I just got off of a mentoring conversation with a young man who, within minutes, I knew that he needs to be in marketing. He needs to be in the people side of it because he loves people. He loves communicating. He loves being able to help solve problems on a interpersonal level. And he already knew that, but it's always good to have that reinforced. And so, that's the kind of thing that really resonated for him. On the other hand, if you really love information, if you love numbers, if you love computers, if you love machinery, then non-people kinds of stuff are likely to be something that you're much more comfortable with. I know a lot of wonderful technicians who work as either maintenance people or maintenance managers, and they're kind of fun because there's a very low BS quality about them. They don't have a lot of sophistication in the way that they think about things, and yet what they cherish and love is that an airplane or an engine or avionics are things that they know that they can solve, they can climb into, they can play with, they can do great things. But when they get into the people environment, it becomes something that's much more unstable for them. It's uncomfortable for them. And those are the kinds of things I want you to think about for yourselves. What are the kinds of things that are most comfortable, most enjoyable, that help you understand the environment in which you're likely to be happiest? I can tell you that when I shifted from what I thought was an absolute career path, sales marketing of large aircraft, to consulting, it was like being liberated. I became so much happier, even though I was not unhappy and I was doing fine financially, but it was just easy for me. It was so much fun. And that's what I would hope for each of you, is that you find those things that make you really feel at home. The things that allow you to express yourselves, to achieve the kinds of things that you want and love. And what's really fun about this is we're all wired differently. Each of you, there is no right or wrong. Our moms tell us to grow up and do good. And the answer is, each of us has different ways of doing that. Each of us has different ways of expressing ourselves and being able to create the kinds of results that make you feel as though you're valuable. And so with that in mind, I'm going to go quiet here. I've spent maybe 10 minutes on the intro. And Philip, I'll turn it over to you to moderate and to start poking at me about what does that all really mean for you?
All right. Yeah, in general, what does that really mean for us, in a sense?
Ask it differently.
I'll ask it differently. Um, Let me think. And you guys are welcome to help too. Um,
But if I think I understood your question, okay, if you've got a good sense of who you are, then the question is who is it that you want to talk to about your careers? Who is it that you want to consider as potential employers? And that what I'm suggesting is that if you have a better sense of what's going to make you happy, then you can begin to identify corporations that are the right size, the right industry, the right part of the industry, the right culture, and the kinds of roles that are likely to be the kinds of things in which you're going to be happiest. And I will also tell you outright that people that are happy tend to be more productive. They tend to be more successful. And so, I think it's absolutely appropriate for you to try to figure out what makes you happy and where would you be happy if you had the opportunity. When I was interviewing at Beach, I was also trying to interview at Cessna. And the Cessna folks were much more transactionally based. They were much more into sales rather than into ownership relationships. And I found that the Beach approach was something that resonated with me. If you were to be looking at airlines, do you want to be part of one of the very largest and most successful airlines, American or Delta or United? Or do you want to be part of an organization that is a little more avant-garde, that is a little more deliberate about being different? And you look at Southwest, and that could be an opportunity, or Virgin. Take your pick as to the ones that are out there that are kind of trying to break the mold. So the question becomes again, I would rather you be on purpose about who you talk with than simply shotgunning. In the conversation I had earlier this afternoon, I suggested to the young man that there were 3 or 4 different organizations that he needed to interview with, they need to go talk with, and that if he were to be offered a position with any of those 4, he would probably be thoroughly happy because they culturally, ethically, philosophically were the kinds of organizations that he would be happiest in. He brought up a 5th one, and I suggested that he take a hard look at the leadership of that organization and the fact that they tended to treat people as though they were the problem rather than the solution. And in that kind of an organization, people who are very rules oriented are very comfortable. And that's something else. If you are extraordinarily rules oriented, then that's the kind of environment that's going to be comfortable for you. If on the other hand, if you believe in trust and commitment, and you find a company or a cross-cut section of companies that are based in that kind of culture, then you're not likely to make a mistake. You're likely to be able to find that whichever one happens to have the opportunity for you is likely to be one that you thoroughly enjoy being part of. Does that answer the question you were trying to raise?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So number 1, figure out who you are, and number 2, figure out who they are, and then only play with the ones that you want to play with. Don't do shotgun. Don't do, I've heard so many great things about how Textron is going to be an even bigger, better company. And then find out after you get there that you and Textron are completely different in your hearts, as an example. And Textron is going through a dramatic reinvention of themselves. So Textron's a good example because they're not a good example right now. They will be different in a year than they are today. And so and if you want to be part of something that's transitioning, that's exciting. If you want to be part of something that's established, then somebody like Gulfstream or Ember Air, who are consistent, would be even better.
Great. That's good. Thanks. Do you have any advice for, like, I know we talked a lot about air manufacturing. How about for airports? Do you have any wisdom or like anything on that end?
I've landed on a lot of airports. I can't tell you about how airports are run very well. I can tell you that a boyhood friend became an airport manager, and it's airport management is essentially the business of real estate management. And so with that in mind, it's like running a small town. And so I'm not making this up. I'm thinking about my experiences and my exposure to the people that work on airports, whether it's an FBO or whether it's otherwise. So you end up having to deal with politicians because the airport is owned by the community. You end up having to deal with renters, the FBOs. You have to be very deliberate about establishing and maintaining an emergency response system, because every airport is a high risk environment. And so there's a very high probability that you're going to have accidents, either ground or flight, and that you're responsible for making sure that everybody's prepared to respond as effectively as well as possible, which, if that sort of preparation and response is something that excites you, that's tremendously important. If it's something that scares you, it's something that you should be very deliberate about considering what kind of impact that's going to have. Because if you make a mistake and it doesn't go as well as you'd hoped, you're going to be responsible for it. So it's a very interesting playground. So it's, airports are a very dynamic environment. You can start at a one runway rural airport, and over time, because of the experience and knowledge that you gain, it's easy to become more and more involved. I have a very dear friend who is the head of risk management for Denver International. She started out in the insurance business, and she was actually on my board of directors for a while. I'd known her before that, so there are so many different roles and responsibilities in the airport environment that it is a huge playground. And again, each one is unique. Each community is unique. Lots and lots of interesting choices and opportunities there.
It's great to hear. Yeah, that was something from me that I wanted to ask. But if anyone wants to ask Mr. Pidegar any questions, go for it.
So Philip, a good example there is if you wanted to know more about working on airports, have you already gone over to the airport manager's office at either Daytona or New Smyrna Beach?
No, I haven't. I just thought about it recently, and I was like,
yeah, you'd be surprised how open people are in helping college students that have an interest in the aviation industry. And so if you were to call and make an appointment to visit with the airport manager for 30 minutes and just say, I'm thinking about this arena as a career. What are the kinds of things that you all do? What are the kinds of things that you think are critical for somebody that's thinking about coming here? And you're going to find that you're going to get all the help that you can stand. And oh, by the way, you go to New Smyrna Beach, you go up to Ormond, you go over to DeLand, and you're going to find that each one of them has a different perspective, different ideas, and you'll gain from each one. And I would suggest that for each of you, as you look at career paths, it doesn't have to be at airports. You will find that you will run across people that are tremendously helpful. I'm going to get in trouble here. Nicholas, what direction do you intend to go?
Me? I'm trying to figure that out.
Okay. I will tell you that there's nothing wrong with not knowing for sure where you want to go. And with that in mind, my younger son, I told him that I would pay his college tuition and books until he graduated. What I didn't say was that there was a limit to the time, and he took 6 years to figure out what he wanted to do before he finally declared a major. So I should have put a limit on the time, but he ended up, over time becoming more and more aware of what he loved, and he moved into that. But as you look at what makes you happy, the things that are of interest to you, exciting to you, that's going to help you narrow your focus down on sectors of the industry. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with going to work someplace so that you gain a better perspective of what's going on, and you can begin to pay attention to things that really do make you happier. Or it's always smart to know what you don't like too. You just don't want to get hurt doing it. Cece, how about you?
Actually, I was going to ask you the question anyway regarding on this. So just to answer the question first, I would like to actually stay in the airline industry for sure. And just from my past experience, I would like also to maybe stay in the area of like consulting or the investment banking. So that's why I was going to ask you, for someone like me who had the experience already in the aviation and the airline industry, but meanwhile, if you would like to, I would say, step out of the comfort zone, just to, spread wings, try other different things. Do you have any suggestions on this?
Well, the consulting environment's very, very interesting because it's sort of like going into the law. The junior partners or junior members of the firm end up doing a lot of hard work and being rewarded moderately. It's the partners that end up making all the big money and having the most fun. So it's a tedious process. For organization design and strategic planning stuff, it requires a great deal of experience. And so with that in mind, you're not likely to find a consulting firm that's going to be interested in bringing in inexperienced people. So that's going to be a bit of a climb, much like the large consulting firms do. On the financial side, there's a tremendous amount of activity in that area that starts out with financial analysis. It starts out with financing. There are plenty of opportunities and roads to travel in that playground that are not nearly as restrictive as the consulting environment, in my observation. And certainly, people like Vitaly can probably provide you with some insights. Jay, are there other folks on the staff who have strong insights into aircraft financing and that kind of playground?
Sundar can help with that. And we have a lot of interaction that goes on. Dr. Zaub, correct me if I'm wrong. In the ISTAT conference, we take our students to ISTAT conference. Anyone, whether it's MBA, MSAF, MBA AM, can join that conference as long as they've completed one of the 2 ISTAT classes.
Yeah. Right. So let me take you down an additional trail on that, CC. And that is someplace that a lot of people don't think much about is insurance. And that's certainly a financial management playground. And the insurance industry is very dynamic and very fluid. And so there are a lot of opportunities that pop up in that playground. And if you develop a book of business that is customer based, you'll find that can be extraordinarily rewarding, both personally and financially. And so, anything on the numbers side is going to have a lot of value. And so, look beyond strictly the financial analysis and the financial financing, although those are really good areas. But the banks have different levels of comfort with their book of business when it comes to aircraft financing. And a bank can go from, we want lots of airplane money on the books, to we're afraid of it, we need to get out of it. And so you can end up being at the tail end of the whip. So take a hard look at how long they've been in the aircraft financing business, and what their commitment is to it long term. And pay attention to the history rather than the promises, because the history will tell you a good bit about their comfort level. If they're brand new into the aviation finance business, they may not stay in it as they learn how difficult it can be.
Mhm.
If they've been in it for a long time and plan to stay in that because it's part of who they are, you're likely to find that that's much more stable.
That's true. Okay.
But at the same time, you don't have to stick to a single career path, right?
Exactly. Mhm.
Well, I mean, you look at me, I was military, then I was flight instructor for the airlines, and then I was aircraft sales and marketing for 13 years, and then took this hard right turn to becoming a consultant. And once I found what I loved, it was so much fun that the time went by fast, and each day was an adventure. And so, may I, absolutely, I hope the same for each of you, is that your careers end up in a place where you're having that kind of connection between who you are and what you do.
Mhm.
True. I've got a friend. He's been flying for about 20. He'd been flying for about 25 years, and he always had a passion for real estate, which really there's no connection between the two. And he stopped flying, and in a year he made more money selling real estate than flying. And he was one of the senior pilots. I mean, and again, I mean, I'm not telling you to become real estate agents or brokers, but it's amazing because you start, most of us, as Mr. Agur was saying, we start careers and we end up doing something else, which we love. I mean, me personally, for example, I started out as a CPA, and I spent 12 years doing audits and traveling, which was fantastic. And I never even imagined of coming to teach. And then the bug got me, and I love it.
And sorry, but Dr. Zarb, can I pick on you a little bit?
You can. It depends what, because no, go ahead.
He also has a passion on personal finance, and he is really good at it. So he and Professor Ledgerwood do these personal finance workshops for a lot of people on the campus.
Yes,
about it?
Yes. No, actually, I mean, I also did it for people who were about to get married in our church, because they had no clue about finances, and most people don't have any clue about finances. So it's always a kind of a good feeling to give back to people and to do something which hopefully will help people. And of course, in your case, you're lucky because you're getting the real, the full education in finance, which you can use in your own personal lives as you grow up.
Mariano, you've been quiet.
Yeah, a lot about what I kind of discovered with the aviation industry this year is that it's cyclical, and that's mainly with flying, So my passion sort of extends into also finance. I discovered that when I was an undergraduate or taking undergraduate classes as an AS major. And in terms of career outlook, I honestly see like the airlines as sort of a step into gaining operational experience, if you will. So my question for you would be, is it a good idea to focus in on sort of learning the ropes of how the industry works by taking different positions, be it the flying position, be it marketing, financial analysis, and then sort of working your way up to determining, okay, where do you want to take this further in life?
It depends upon the way that the company that you are employed by sees the way they normally bring people up through the organization. For example, one of our clients is Procter & Gamble. And at Procter & Gamble, when you become part of one product group, for instance, the marketing for Crest toothpaste, you do that for a year or two, and then they take you out of Crest and they take you someplace completely different and in a different role, because it causes you to have to rethink everything that you've already learned. So that's one, it's kind of a cold shock approach, but it's a very interesting, deliberate progression. Many other companies, for instance, Beech Aircraft, after 3 years with Beach and having a very good experience and record with them, they said, Pete, we want you to come back to Wichita from Atlanta, and we're going to give you a promotion, and we want you to take over this next job. And the answer was that I was actually being asked to take a cut in pay because they were giving me a 15% dislocation allowance, and they were only going to give me a 6% raise. So I was going to lose 9%, and Wichita is not a cheap place to live. And so, you know, and I asked my boss, what's the logic in this? He says, at Beach, the only way to progress is to pay your dues. And so in that environment, they were telling me culturally, they were requiring that you simply follow their rules. And of course, I'm not that kind of person. And so it was very difficult for me because I love the company, I love the organization, I love the clients, but I had to say, this isn't what I want to do. And so I had to choose to step away. So what you want to identify in doing that is two things. One is how does this company grow its people internally? And number two, to progress the most quickly. I have a very dear friend who was an Air Force Academy graduate. And what he did when he came into the civilian world is he was given a job. And as soon as he got good at that job, he then began to ask for more work. He said, okay, I've got this under control. What else needs to be done? And by doing that, two things happened. Number one, he got exposed to different parts of the business. And number two, they realized that he was somebody that they could rely on for the success of the business. And so he got promoted much more quickly than his peers because most people naturally want to be more comfortable. Whereas Carl was saying, hey, you know, I got this piece of it under control. You know, what else needs to be done? What else can I do? And he'd volunteer for anything. And he ended up becoming a top executive at one of the major oil companies, not because he was politically smart, which is how you usually get promoted to the top positions, but because he simply wanted to learn and grow. And so, you know, Mariana, I would highly recommend that you take a look at both of those tactics, and don't be afraid to go in, knowing that in the beginning you may be doing a job that isn't exactly what you want, and it may be not as powerful as you hope it would be. But if you show yourself to be somebody who, they use the term team player, I don't think that's appropriate. If you look like you're somebody who's going to help the company succeed, they're going to try to figure out how to get you even more involved.
May I interrupt? I need to leave. Thank you very much. This was a nice pleasure. So have a nice evening, and I'll see you all on campus.
Take care, Bear. Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Night night.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. But it's curious that you mentioned P&G because I was looking at some of their positions right now, and there was a position that they have out in I believe it's Geneva in Switzerland, where it's sort of a transitional position in where you're doing financial analysis out in Switzerland, and then they say about every 2 years they sort of rotate you to different positions, different parts of the world as well. So, yeah, it's interesting that some companies offer a straight program like that.
Yeah, I had a very dear friend who was president of a company in Geneva, and in fact, he and I started at Beach together, and he ended up becoming the president of TAG Aviation, which is a worldwide company based in Geneva, and that's a gorgeous town. And a beautiful area, you know. So you know that would not be a bad thing to do. And of course, P&G is a great company, so you know, don't be afraid of that. Welcome, Freddie.
Hey, Pete. How are you doing, sir?
Doing great. How about you?
Long time no see. Miss you a lot. Miss all your wisdom, you know?
I'm full of it. Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I actually have a question for you, sir. So during the hiring process, okay, what do you think is the biggest needs of employers like you? Like, what are you guys looking for in a job candidates? Like,
Yeah, and I'll hit that with about 3 different steps in the answer. Number one, hiring somebody is a huge risk for any organization because making a mistake is expensive. You have an organization and a culture that are stable, that are established with other people, and bringing in a new individual can be either very helpful or very destructive. And so with that in mind, most organizations have a very difficult time hiring people because it's a risk. It's frustrating. It's difficult. The second piece of it is that most organizations don't do a very good job of the interview process. They're very good at sorting through technical qualifications, those kinds of things. But what they're not very good at is really figuring out whether or not it's a great match. And so with that in mind, it's your responsibility, because it's your life, to make sure that the interview actually covers what you need to be sure you understand. And so everybody says, okay, you've got to interview the interviewer. You really need to know and understand the company and its culture and who you will be working for. With that in mind, finally getting to the point that you're asking, Freddie, anybody that's hiring is trying to fill a role and get something accomplished. We don't buy drill bits because we want drill bits. We buy drill bits because we need holes. And the same thing is with an employee. You're not hiring a body. You're not hiring an individual. You're trying to achieve results. You're trying to have the organization continue to grow and succeed, whether it's a manufacturing environment or a service business. And so what you want to be sure you're paying attention to is what is it they're trying to achieve? What are their biggest challenges? What are the things that are most difficult for them? What are the things that they are afraid of or that they are most excited about? And in their description of those answers, you'll gain a great deal of insight as to whether or not you fit well into that. When I was doing my first interview with Beach, I was told it was going to be a 3-interview, 6-week process. And as I stood in front of this group of gentlemen who were the execs that I was going to be working for, I began to ask them what it was that they were most interested in for this role. What would this person do for them that was going to help them be successful? And they began to talk about the organization, the new operation that they were trying to create. And so what I did was I stimulated them into talking among themselves about their hopes, dreams, and concerns for this new business unit. And in doing it, I didn't talk for over 20 minutes while they got into a very, very deliberate conversation about this new business unit and their fears and their concerns and their excitement for it. In the end, I simply said, what you're talking about, I think it can be done, and I would love to be part of it, and this is why. And I explained what I thought I could do to help them. Interestingly enough, I was offered a job that day. I was not asked to come back 3 times, and I didn't have to go through more interviews because I simply got them to tell me what they were trying to achieve. And then I looked them in the eye and I said clearly and comfortably, I can help you do that. And honestly, that's what an employer is looking for. They're looking for somebody that can help them achieve what they need. They're not looking for new employees. They're looking for results. They're looking for career development. And so, that's the kind of thing, looking past winning the interview. I'm very competitive. I've been told I'm one of the most competitive people, out there. I would go into an interview simply to win the job offer. And the problem with that is if I win and it's not where I want to be, what have I done to myself? And what have I done to them? And so what I would hope for each of you is that you very deliberately choose to win only when you want to, only when you should.
Absolutely. That is, wow, yeah. That is just like, wow, that is eye-opening to hear something like that. As always, you never fail to impress me.
You're too easy, Fred. You're too easy. Claire, you come from a neighborhood that has such a low BS factor. Alaskans are renowned for being very blunt, very direct. If you're not, it's like working on a ranch. I worked on a ranch when I was a kid, and if you weren't able to haul your own, nobody had any interest in you. What are the kinds of things that you're looking towards as you come to your next step?
It's really tough, and I've thought about it a lot. Going home to my family business, I won't be doing just one job. I won't be in a single department. It will be my job to oversee many different departments and, work in a lot of, work with maintenance, but also work with operations and work with my pilots and my fuelers. And so I think for me, one of the most important aspects is I think human resources, because learning how to work well with everybody and maybe be a good, what are they called? Somebody being a good mediator. There are always going to be problems between different departments and different people, and being able to help work that out so that everybody can be effective. I think that's really important for me, and that's something that I really want to learn. But unfortunately, I don't have like a specific, I can't say, oh, I want to be in the maintenance department, or I want to learn all about operations. And the people are tough. It's not like we just have small arguments. Like when people fight in Alaska, it is the clash of the titans, and there are these big personalities. And so I think that that's how I can best help my father's organization, is by being good with people.
One thing you may want to think about is the temptation when you're arguing, it's usually about stuff inside the house. And so with that in mind, the temptation is for it to become more and more powerful because it's all kind of held in by the walls. But if you can help people understand where true north is, what it is that the company is trying to achieve for the community, and then go from there into the conversation about, okay, where does this argument, where does this disagreement fit into that conversation? It takes the personalities out of it, and it goes back to what you're looking for, and that's results that are likely to be more collaborative than win-win or win-lose. I hate arguments. I hate fights. I am not good at it. I'm not good at arguing. And so, here I was in a consulting business, which consultants are usually in a conflict environment. And I had some wonderfully brilliant people. What was fascinating is we had very few arguments because we all focused on trying to help the client succeed. And our biggest arguments were about the best way to do that. And I'll take that argument all day long. Now pilots who disrespect technicians, need to go follow a technician around for a whole day. Technicians who disrespect pilots need to have a conversation about the fact that when they leave the airport, that pilot is relying on that technician's doing the job right. I've nearly died because I had a technician not do his job right. And if I could have gotten my hands on that guy, I would have loved to have had the conversation that my body wished I'd had when I was full of adrenaline when it was coming apart. So the fun and exciting thing about our industry is the stakes are so high. We are talking about helping people get to where they need to be when they need to be. And unfortunately, the consequences of doing it wrong can be extraordinarily expensive. And so there's a standard and a cost associated with it that's tremendously important for us to always pay attention to. My second love was safety. My first love was making clients happy. My second love was safety. And those are the kinds of things that this industry and the opportunities that you have are extraordinarily available to you. Sergio, how are you? You're muted. There you are.
Hey Pete, how's it going? Long time no see.
Yeah, too long. Where are you today?
I'm here in the College of Business, here in the graduate lounge.
Okay.
How's it going? Yeah.
across the hall.
Yeah, across the hall.
Yeah, Monday or Tuesday of next week would be good for us to get together.
Perfect. Perfect. That's no problem. No, thank you. I appreciate your time.
Okay, look forward to it.
Yeah. I was actually in class before this. That's why I came in a little bit late. But because as Alfred was saying, your words are always very valuable. So thank you for this time.
Good.
Are you enjoying free coffee, Sergio?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's good coffee. It's good coffee. Not Colombian though, but good coffee.
Fresh ground Colombian is about as good as it gets.
Oh,
And I've had the pleasure of getting that from Sergio.
Oh yeah, have you liked it?
Yeah, it was great.
Okay, I'm
Thank
glad.
you.
Can you put it in a K-cup for me?
For sure. I'll try.
Nah, there's only one person who hasn't talked yet or hasn't asked a question. Can you guess who that is?
Two. Val and
Oh,
Ali.
okay. My apologies. Yes, correct. So,
Hi.
hello.
Hi, Mr. Agur. It's a long time no see.
Good to see you again.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So I have questions like I clearly know what I'm interested about, but I think like the market right now is pretty tough. So I was thinking like if I only focus on what I like, maybe I will lose a lot of opportunity for others. So how do you think about it?
Jay, you're going to go where I want to go. Go for it.
Ali, the market is always tough and the market is always easy. It depends on you, how you look at it. Did I say it wrong, Pete?
I would say it differently, but you're absolutely right. When one side of the market is down, other sides of the market are up. And so right now the airline industry is very slowly recovering, and it won't recover with any elegance because they've not been through this kind of thing before, and they're each trying to figure out how to deal with it. Simultaneously, charter, fractions, cargo are going gangbusters. Amazon starting their own air cargo business is amazing to me. Huge opportunities to be part of something that will be probably one of the most interesting businesses that we've ever seen. So realistically, when one part of the market goes down, other parts go up. When the housing boom bust occurred in 2000, one of our clients was in the rental property business, the largest owners of rental property in the country. They did phenomenally because people were coming out of homes because they could not afford to live in a wholly owned home, and they were going into apartments. And so Tom and his business were just amazingly busy. So as Jay said, it depends upon where you look. If the storm is coming from that direction, then the sunlight's probably shining over there. And if you want to go play in the storm and fight it, that's fine. But if you want to have easy sailing, you want to go that way. And everybody needs finance. Everybody needs HR. Everybody, the roles in the industry are always the same. They're simply being played differently in each different part of the industry. And so there's really a lot of latitude and a lot of opportunity.
I have a sneaky feeling that Mariano is going to become a real estate dealer soon. He's the pilot here.
So always one option to explore, right? People need to fly as much as they need a place to live.
Well, like Pete said, risk management, right? If you want to be in the storm, so be it, but also have some stakes in the sunshine.
Well, as a helicopter pilot, I never got off the ground without having all kinds of ideas about where I would go if something went wrong. And the same thing goes in business. If you are involved in business, you always want to have in the back of your mind, if something goes different than I planned, how am I going to handle it? Not just where the better opportunities are, but where are the recovery opportunities?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you a question. Can you hear me? So try to structure this. So you as an executive, how would you define when to stop or like deviate from your objectives or from your current objectives. Because us as students might be labeled as our CEOs of our own lives, just as well as one. I'm sorry if I'm saying this incorrectly, as Wang was saying, like if you just narrow down for the things you like, you might hindsight yourself from other opportunities. But maybe that by focusing on one thing, you're focusing on what you want. So at what point does you as an executive would say like, okay, even as much as I want something, I need to change this course of action because it's not looking well. So,
and the question becomes one of how much do you want that thing? If what you want is X and the direct line to X is not going to work, there's just no way you can get there from here. If you wanted to be a management consultant in business aviation, as you walk out the door, you're not going to be qualified. And so there's no way that you're going to get hit with a magic wand that's going to give you the maturity, the experience, the knowledge that you need to have to be good at that and to be successful at it. And so the question then becomes one of, okay, what can I do that will take me in that direction? What kinds of things can I be doing that help me grow towards where I want to be? When I came out of United Airlines and went to work at Beach, I would have loved to have been selling Gulfstream airplanes for $100,000 a year or more. And the answer is I had never sold anything in my life. I wasn't qualified for that. So I started out by selling little airplanes and learned about transactions, learned about clients, learned about deliveries, those kinds of things, and then worked my way up into jets and turboprops. In the end, I mean, we've delivered billions of dollars of airplanes to clients. We've helped them buy billions of dollars worth of aircraft. At what point did I become qualified to do that? The answer is over time. Each thing that you do adds to your toolkit. I think, the question of when to turn left, if going straight ahead is only going to hurt, that depends upon how stubborn you are. How badly you want to deal with bloody noses as you bump into the wall. I would suggest that having dreams is great. Having achievable dreams is even better. And that doesn't really answer, that's not a specific answer to your question.
oh, I knew it was a little bit like broad, but it does give a good picture. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, this is for you, Peter, sir. So, how do you become so persuasive? Like, how do you allow others trust billions of dollars to you? And obviously you did that.
That's easy. It's not about me, it's about them.
Right.
What you want to do is gain as much insight into who they are, what they're trying to achieve, what they want, and then help them understand what the best result is for them, how they can get there from here. My bosses may not have loved the fact that there were times when I didn't have an airplane that fit their profile, the client's profile. When I worked for Mitsubishi, there were people who simply didn't want an airplane that was like a Mitsubishi. And so, I would have a conversation with somebody who says, I want anything except something with Garrett engines on it. Well, the answer is we didn't have anything but Garrett engines. And so I would say, well, then, I would highly recommend that you talk with somebody who has Pratt engines because that's where you're going to be happy. So the point is you're not in the business of selling something. You're in the business of trying to help somebody make a better decision and a decision that they're going to cherish in the long run. And when you can do that, then it's not selling, it's helping them buy. And if it happens to be your product, then everybody's happy. If it happens to be somebody else's product, your integrity is still in place and they are apt to remember you and refer people back to you. So you're going to still come out ahead.
Absolutely. It's very interesting because like recently I'm into like trying to start like self-development and all that kind of stuff. I was reading this book called How to Influence Friends and People by Dale Carnegie. I think you told me, you're the one who told me about that book. Along with your little life. You remember last time you told me, I was asking you, how do you decide to like start a business or like be friends with someone? You told me, go ahead. Do you mind explain the lifeboat, your lifeboat theory again to everyone? I love that. I think everyone should listen to that. Like seriously.
I mean, one of the ways that when I'm meeting somebody new, and Claire, I'll use you as an example. You know, I have a high regard for authenticity, for people who are honest about themselves and honest about the world. I have a very difficult time with people who are all show and no go. People who blame other people for their problems, you know, that sort of thing. If I were to end up in a lifeboat with two other people, and one of them was like Claire, who is going to look at the situation and say, okay, here we are, what are we going to do next? Versus somebody who's going like, oh my God, you know, this is no fair, this is terrible. One of us is going to be swimming. Yeah, within a day, is everybody going to still be on the boat? And the answer is Claire and I are probably going to throw somebody to the fish.
That's great. Good.
Now I'm going to mess this up. Is it Valentine or Valentine?
It's Valentine.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess it's a little bit more on my side, but I guess, I mean, I'm graduating in 2 months, and I was just wondering what advice you can give me to kind of really make myself stand out.
Well, where are you going to go?
I have no idea yet.
Geographically, where are you going to go?
Anywhere in the U.S.
Okay. Are you a U.S. citizen?
Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, the question becomes one of, again, sorting through the things that excite you. You know, one of the smartest things you can do is learn more. You know, if you've already got some sense of the sectors within the industry that you want to be part of, then there's nothing wrong with doing a road trip and going to some of the places that you've learned about. And I'm talking about companies that you've learned about that you would like to know more about. You're going to have that freedom if you don't already have a job. And so having the opportunity to go meet those people, talk with them, find out from them what are the kinds of things that help them identify folks who are going to be successful in their company. And for you not to parrot that, but for you to see whether or not that's something that fits who you are. And each time you're going to have one of those conversations, a couple of things can happen. Number one, you're going to learn, because you're going to be gaining new relationships, and you're going to be learning more about their business and more about the things that are of interest to you. The other thing that's likely to happen is if you take that extra step and ask, who else should I be talking with? And what's interesting about that is two things. Number one, they're not going to refer you to somebody that they think is an idiot. You know, so they're going to be referring you to people that are pretty darn good. And number two, they may be knowing of people who are looking for folks. And if they are willing to refer you, that means that there may be an opportunity that could lead you into the role that you would hope for. But for you to declare, I'll do anything, is not going to be the right kind of answer that's going to find you what you want. You know, do you have any idea what elements in the industry you want to be part of?
I mean, aircraft manufacturer. So, I mean, in terms of companies, I've been eyeing Embraer and Gulfstream, Garmin as well. And so, I mean, in terms of roles, either like a financial analyst or along the lines of like product development, those are the things I'm looking at. But
Embraer and Gulfstream are both easy to reach on a day trip.
Yeah.
And then Garmin, Olathe, Kansas is, a day and a half trip away. And, certainly they are a couple of things. Number one, Garmin is a great company, and they continue to make more inroads into the aerospace playground. My airplane's just been retrofitted with a bunch of Garmin equipment, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. But I also have Avidyne, and Avidyne is a second level player who's trying to work their way up, and that may or may not be a big risk, but they're down in Melbourne. And again, someplace that you might want to go talk with them about who are they, what are they trying to do, and what kinds of things are in their future, and what kinds of challenges do they see, and see whether or not there's an opportunity for you to help them in that playground. Even if you were to go to a company, and I'm making this up, but if you were to get hired by Avidyne, and after a year or two, you realize that they weren't going as far as you were going, or that they were a different kind of company, being in the industry and being experienced is going to be a step up from being a brand new graduate of our school. And so, those are going to be, I would highly recommend a roadshow, for yourself to go meet people and get a sense of who they are and what they're doing. Under COVID, it's a little more difficult, but it's getting better quickly. I mean, it's, we are, here Texas is declaring we don't even need masks anymore. It's going to open up, and it's going to open up just in time for you guys.
True.
I need to interrupt, but I've got to head out for my 1800 activity, so I'll be heading out now.
1800. Let's see. That's Mickey's big hand.
No, well, 6 o'clock.
Yeah. I was about to say something. I hate to interrupt, and it's such good content from you, Mr. Agur. But it's 6 o'clock. But I knew you had a meeting before, and I wanted to let you know.
I've got a hot date. I appreciate that.
Is it possible that we can reach out to you for?
I'd love for you to reach out to me. I'm in the directory. Jay knows, Dr. G knows how to get a hold of me. Sergio knows how to get a hold of me. Cece knows how to get a hold of me. Claire knows how to get a hold of me. So, I'm here. And, granted, I can't have you in my office, but we can meet for coffee. Anything you want to do, I'm there.
All right. Awesome.
On behalf of the entire community of the master's programs, thank you, Pete. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And one of the great things about being my age is the next time I come talk with you, it's a whole new group of faces that I don't know. And everything I say is brand new.
Same quality though.
Everything is great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All the best to all of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you
sir.
so much.
Peace, sir.
Have a good one.
Yep.
Bye bye.
Shay Shay.
Thanks again. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, Claire.